Live from News Channel 8 in Tampa, Florida, this is Bucs Bonus on WFLA Now. Powered by 1-800-ASK-GARY.
Fresh off the Brady versus Belichick showcase, the Bucs looking to string together another win against an AFC East opponent with a coach that knows Tom Brady pretty well. Next up this Sunday, it's the Bucs hosting the Miami Dolphins for a Florida football showdown. Hey there, everybody. JB Biunno alongside Dan Lucas. Let's welcome Dan here to the program here, folks. Great to have Dan here on Bucs Bonus, powered by 1-800-ASK-GARY. And Dan, another week of football here that we cannot wait to get underway because it's Tom Brady against a coach that really knows Tom Brady. But before we get into Brady versus Brian Flores here, of course, the head coach of the Miami Dolphins, some injury notes here. This is, again, a banged-up Bucs squad, especially on that defense there, and it's one that a lot of folks are talking about here.
Yeah, the injury report on Fridays comes out, and that's kind of the final report because they get the official game status. Sometimes it changes on Saturdays. For instance, Rob Gronkowski not listed out last week until Saturday. But, the latest report here, I'm just going to read. 3 guys out that are 3 big losses. Antoine Winfield, who was in the concussion protocol. Rob Gronkowski, whose lung is apparently better, but his ribs were cracked. So that's, if you've ever had any bruised ribs or cracked ribs, you know what he's going through. And Pat O'Connor, not a name people mention a lot, but big special teams guy. Has made some big plays in the past. Had a fumble recovery last year against the Broncos on a punt block. So those are 3 guys that are out, 3 costly losses. Now I'm going to give you 3 names of guys that we're pretty sure that are in. They're listed as questionable, but the first one's Giovanni Bernard, the running back, who's the third down option guy for Tom Brady. Also Jason Pierre-Paul, who is nursing a sore shoulder and also a hand injury. Didn't play last week. Came out to practice with this gigantic, I guess I'll call it a club on his hand. I don't know if he's going to play with that thing, but he should be okay. And the biggest name returning, in my opinion, is Jamel Dean, a cornerback, has a patellar tendon issue. Kind of tweaked it in that L.A. game. Didn't play last week, but he should be ready to go. And the cornerbacks need all the bodies they can get right now. So Jamel Dean coming back is going to be a good pickup for the Bucs, or a good return.
You gain Dean, you lose Winfield there in the secondary. So what can we expect as far as so thinking about some of the names that the Dolphins have, like Jalen Waddle, the exciting rookie here. Of course, we haven't talked about Jacoby Brissett yet. It's not Tua Tagovailoa who's starting for the Dolphins. It's Jacoby Brissett. Right. Tua, of course, out with an injury here. So what kind of performance can we expect, especially with Richard Sherman, who's now entering his second week as a Tampa Bay Buck? What can we expect from the Buccaneers secondary specifically this week with, again, the addition of Dean, but the subtraction of Winfield Jr.?
Well, you got 4 more practices for Richard Sherman. There you go. That's massive. Last week, he only had 3 practices. Wound up playing every play except 1 on defense. And he thought he was going to be able to acclimate, take a week, maybe come into action this week. No, he played almost every play. After signing with the Bucs on Tuesday, he was on the field in Foxborough, played almost every play. Very commendable. And Bruce Arians was very happy with what Richard Sherman did in that game. So I expect we're going to see Sherman out there, obviously, a lot, and probably even better than he was last week. The defensive backfield, last week there was a guy released by the Patriots, Stephon Gilmore. And I think a lot of Bucs fans and some watching this, I don't think they know the entire story. This happened in a matter of hours. Right after the 2 teams played up in Foxborough, the Patriots are going to release Gilmore. They had till 4 o'clock that day to make a deal, and that's when Bucs fans thought,
we're going to get it. We're going to get that corner.
Here. Yeah, this is a good veteran player, but it didn't happen. He went to the Carolina Panthers, which is kind of a double gut punch, if you will. He's not here now; he's a division rival. But this was a salary cap nightmare for the Bucs waiting to happen. It just did not fit, and that's the word you hear a lot from GM Jason Light. It did not fit. Not a criticism of Stephon Gilmore. I'm sure they'd love to have him, but it would have caused some problems in the long run.
In a scenario like this, timing is key. Do you think that somebody like Jason Light, even Tom Brady, thinking, man, if only we had picked up Gilmore before we had signed Richard Sherman? Does that even come into play with the salary cap?
Possibly. Now, Sherman's deal is full of incentives, so it's not cap unfriendly. But, he's coming off of his own injuries, didn't play really at all last year. So he's got to get back to, he's 10 years in. This is his 11th season in the NFL. So 5 Pro Bowls. He's got the resume. But this is when you talk about veteran players, you don't know what you're going to get. What percent are we of Richard Sherman? Are we 85? Are we 90%? If we get 100%, that's awesome. But, what kind of Richard Sherman do we have? So, I think if the Gilmore deal was a week earlier, maybe they do go for that.
Could have been very different, especially with, of course, Gilmore having played with Tom Brady in New England. Let's flip this around now. Let's talk offense, okay? So Tom Brady, fresh off of his win against Bill Belichick, that showdown, perhaps one of the most anticipated regular season affairs that you'll ever see in the NFL, Brady versus Belichick, back home here in Tampa Bay, taking on a Miami Dolphins team here that has underperformed, to say the least. Tua being out certainly doesn't help. They are 1-3 in the AFC East. This was a team that people thought that might have some wild card hopes. The Bills probably the favorite in the AFC East, but there was some talk early on in the preseason, hey, could the Dolphins squeak into a wild card? Tua being out certainly doesn't help. But really, this is going to be a rinse and repeat sort of script for this upcoming game because it's Tom Brady, Dan, taking on another head coach that knows him well and knows how Brady operates.
Yeah, a defensive-minded coach who was on the Patriots staff for 11 years as a defensive coach. So, he didn't work with Tom Brady. He worked against him every single day in practice. So if you're looking for any type of habit or tendency to pick on, to look for, Brian Flores is going to have it. So this is kind of the storyline of this matchup. What does Flores know about Brady that he can exploit? And my answer is Brady has weapons and weapons and weapons at his disposal. No matter what Flores throws at him, I think the Bucs can handle it. The one thing that we saw in last week's game that should give Bucs fans reason to really be excited this Sunday, they run the football, JB. Yeah. They run the ball now. They haven't done it in 3 weeks. They come out last week. Leonard Fournette flirted with 100 yards. It was 91. He had a 21-yard run on a third down play. This looked like, dare we say, a balanced offense. That's what you're supposed to have in the NFL.
And we didn't really know what the running game was going to look like, earlier on in the season. We didn't know if Rojo was going to be the feature back like we saw last year. And then Leonard Fournette, of course, coming in. And now, of course, Lenny having a great playoff last year and just shining on that Super Bowl run. But Gio Bernard, we didn't know how he was going to factor in as far as third down, how much they were really going to, check down to Gio Bernard there and what pass protection for the running back position was going to look like here. But, hey, Tom Brady having a running game, being at the age that he is at, I'm sure it's like a cozy blanket, I'm sure.
It can only help him. And it's unfortunate that Gio Bernard hurt his knee. Scoring a touchdown, it was kind of a fluky, freaky play. He goes into the air, and the player hits his leg as he's diving in, and his knee just made a funny, just a really freak motion, and that was it. But it happened on a play where he was performing his role. That's why he's here. He's the check down guy and the guy that Brady can look to, something he had in New England that he feasted on. And that's why Bernard is here. It's a specialty, catching passes and blocking as well. But good to have him back in that aspect. Neither of these teams run well. That's why it was so encouraging to see the Bucs have a decent running game the other night against the Patriots. They're 30th in the NFL in the running offense. The Dolphins 28th.
Wow.
This isn't exactly this isn't exactly Hall of Fame territory for the run game coming in here. But you've got the Bucs passing attack, which is tops in the league by a mile. They're averaging 327 and a half yards per game. This is irony at its best, because we just talked about the Bucs defense. The Bucs averaged 327.5, number one in the league in the passing game. Pass defense, the Bucs give up 327.5.
To all the fantasy managers that are watching, if it's a Buccaneers game, you can expect there to be a lot lot of passing yards. Let's put it that way.
They're going to give up a lot. So,
but you know what though? You know what's really encouraging? If I read this correctly, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think I saw this on Instagram. that the Buccaneers held the Patriots to -1 rush yards this past week?
Correct. That is correct.
That's an achievement. That's something like a player would get tattooed on his arm to say, hey, remember the time we took on Belichick? We held the team to -1 rushing yards.
I'll give you 2 words why that happened. Vita Vea.
Unreal.
He is
living up to that first-round pick potential now.
I'll tell you this, Vita Vea, right now, he is the defensive MVP on the Bucs. He affected not only the numbers you mentioned in the run game in the New England game, but there were 4 quarterback sacks. And when you go back and watch what Vea did on those plays, the 2 by Joe Tryon Shoyinka, who had clean looks at Mac Jones, were because Vita Vea had 2 guys. He took 2 guys out of the play, a guard and a tackle, and Shoyinka. You and I would have at least run to Mac Jones. I don't know if we could have sacked him, but and now you put Joe Tryon in there, a first-round draft pick, and he's hungry.
He's hungry.
Bowled over the guy. Yep. They needed that performance defensively. Vita Vea the value of Vita Vea cannot be stated enough, especially in that run defense. No one's going to run on this team.
I talk to Bucs fans a lot, and they love Vita Vea. They know how important he is to that defensive front. And on Tryon Shoyinka for a second, I think that he's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder because of all the NFL draft night hype or talk around him. Oh, he's a couple years away. This is a Bruce Arians. This is a Todd Bowles project. They're going to teach him, let him learn the ropes. And he hasn't been on the sidelines all that much holding clipboards or anything like that, sipping Gatorade. He's been out there and been part of some really important key plays for the Bucs on defense.
I think a lot of teams kind of shoved him to the side in their draft preparations because of what happened. He didn't play at all his last year at Washington. There were the COVID protocols, and also he opted out. He was nursing an injury, and the way the Pac-12 schedule came about, he wasn't going to play as many games. He wasn't going to play as many big feature games, so he gambled. He gambled on himself, and it cost him being a higher pick. Now, and we all know now in hindsight, the Bucs got him at 32. He's probably pick number 15.
Right now.
If you went back and redid this draft, that's where he is. And the second he got on the field in mini camp, they said, defensive coordinator Todd Bowles said, we got to get this guy in the game. Okay, he can learn from Shaq Barrett and Jason Pierre-Paul, but he's got to be on the field. So they've done everything they can. They've done little tricks and stunts, and they put him on the inside. They put him on the outside because when you get a guy like that, a first-round pick, you don't pay him to stand on the sidelines, and he's made a difference. He's only played 4 NFL games, and he's made a difference.
Tons of credit to the Buccaneers and their scout team as far as drafting defensive players in years past. We've talked about Vita Vea. We haven't talked about Devin White. Now, of course, talking about Tryon Shoyinka, I mean, finding some defensive studs in high draft picks, and they have really panned out for the Buccaneers, and it certainly makes Tom Brady's job easier when the defense is playing the way that it is. But as a reminder, the secondary just so banged up right now. Let's talk about another position that we haven't really talked about here. Let's talk about tight end. Rob Gronkowski, not going to be a factor here at least this week, and maybe for a few more weeks with that problem with the ribs, that hard hit he took a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
So Cameron Brate's the guy right now based on what we're seeing on the field, but I've heard a lot of Bucs fans ask me, what's up with O.J. Howard? And why isn't O.J. Howard
I wish I had the formula to solve the O.J. Howard mystery, because I thought for sure, take injuries out of it, I thought for sure he was going to have a really big role in this offense playing alongside Gronk, just on the other side, and anything they were going to do with 2 tight ends. It's gotten so bizarre that Chris Godwin took the tight end spot on a few plays last week against the Patriots. Didn't line up as a receiver. Was up there on the offensive line with his hand on the ground and he would go out into a route. But that's supposed to be O.J. Howard doing that. Mm-hmm. And as you mentioned, Cam Brate getting the most of the targets during games. The other night, now the conditions were not good, but balls were going through his hands. There were some drops. He finally got a little bit of momentum later as the offense got rolling. But right now, they are missing Gronkowski more than I thought they would. I didn't think they would.
there were people who
noticeable.
wanted to write Gronkowski got his ring. He's having fun in Florida. He's just another one of the weapons that Tom Brady utilizes after Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Antonio Brown. Then Gronkowski Rob Gronkowski was an integral part of this offense before he got hurt, and now it's like, man, what could have been? This, as crazy as it sounds, we were having a really incredible, one of the better beginnings to the season for Rob Gronkowski, and it's just so unfortunate that it was cut short.
4 touchdowns in 2 games, and Bruce Arians told me last Monday. I asked him, "Did you miss Gronk more than you thought?" And he said, "Yeah, we did, but he goes, we have other guys who step up and fill in." He says the one thing that's different is Tom Brady is more likely to look in Gronk's direction when Gronk's on the field.
Sure.
So now you take that element away. It's not that he's not confident in Cam Brate, but when you're going to your 1, your 2, your 3, your 4 option on a play, it's nice to have Gronk out there.
Oh, of course. or a big body like O.J.
Right.
Howard. And I'm just saying this. I think that randomly 1 week, whether it's week 6 or 7 or 8, just out of nowhere, watch the offense just automatically go to O.J. Howard for some big moments in the red zone. It's gonna be completely the mystery, the O.J. Howard mystery that you talked about. It's just gonna randomly produce like crazy numbers at some point this season. He's gonna awaken.
I just think O.J. Howard he's talented, and he's one of those guys that
an enigma.
You could say, sorry, it just didn't work out, and move on. And I think a lot of Bucs fans be like, okay, that's fine, but what is he going to be next year, the year after? At some point, O.J. Howard, I think, is going to take off. Some point.
Randomly, without any warning or any
right.
Subtle hint that it's going to happen. It's just going to be takeoff.
Right.
It's going to be launch time for O.J. Howard. Dan, before we wrap up here on Bucs Bonus, we got to talk about the matchup this weekend, which is very similar to what we had last weekend. Last weekend, Tom Brady versus Bill Belichick. Now it's Tom Brady versus, of course, Brian Flores. What are you anticipating as far as Brady's planning and his strategy for the game? And then, of course, Brian Flores. What's Brian Flores going to bring as far as that Dolphins front?
Well, Brian Flores is going to try and blitz up the middle, or at least get his pressure up the middle. That has been Tom Brady's Achilles heel, I guess you could say. The Rams did a good job of it. You get up the middle. You don't have to touch him. You don't have to get to him. But Aaron Donald disrupted a lot of plays up the middle in that L.A. game. And I think if Flores can do that, then that's going to make the Bucs offense a little bit more difficult to operate. But, you got Antonio Brown back last week. So the band is back together, I guess, if you in the receiver core. And if Leonard Fournette runs like he ran against the Patriots and they can be balanced, that means they're going to keep the ball longer. They could drive, score. You're talking now touchdown drives. Last week they kicked a lot of field goals. They did not have success in the red zone. You turn those into touchdowns. Before you know it, you're up 3 scores. And the Dolphins have been susceptible to that. The Indianapolis Colts did that to them a week ago, and it wasn't really even a close game down in South Florida. The Colts just kind of rolled, and the Colts aren't having a great year themselves.
And give me one piece of WFLA sports intel that you think that not enough people are paying attention to as far as this season and this Bucs team, or at least entering this matchup. Give me a name, give me a particular storyline, something that just has gone a little bit under the radar that you think might shine through this week, or that not enough people are paying attention to.
I think it's going to sound a little almost cliche-ish, but the linebacker core has come back, I think, a little bit. Levante David has really been steady, of course, but he's been more noticeable. And you mentioned his name once, Devin White. He's playing with that motor again. So I think those guys have helped it's turned it into a front 5, really, more than front 4 on that pass rush. They're controlling run games, making teams one-dimensional. Now it's just a matter of covering down the field, which has been the issue, and I think the linebackers have made a big difference in that. I think the Devin White, Levante David combo for me is one of the best in the league. So that's something to watch in this game in particular. Something
else to watch is Dan Lucas and some of the insider access that he has as far as his Twitter and Instagram accounts. You can follow him at WFLA Dan on both Twitter and Instagram. And Bucs Bonus is back here with you, everybody, every week over the course of the regular season. Of course, Bucs Bonus and WFLA Now, powered by 1-800-ASK-GARY, where we bring you the latest on Buccaneers football. We break it down, we talk about it, give you a preview of that week's matchup, and talk a little bit about Buccaneers football. Dan, thanks a lot for being on with us.
All right, JB, be good.
All right, Dan Lucas, everybody. We'll see you next time, everybody, on Bucs Bonus here on WFLA Now, powered by 1-800-ASK-GARY.